Good afternoon. It is a pleasure to welcome you all to this edition of the Glass Academy Webinars 2026 in association with Ethos Empowers. This year's theme, Envisioning India at 2047, Building the Next Century of Progress, explores the intersection of architecture, materials, technology, and human experience. As a part of this ongoing dialogue, we continue to reflect on how design responds to evolving lifestyles. The way we live is changing, and so are the spaces we inhabit. Materials today are no longer passive elements, they actively shape how we experience light, comfort, openness, and connection. And this shift is visible in architecture's move beyond fixed boundaries, between permanence and flexibility, living and staying, and function and experience. Today's session, Homes and Hospitality Through Glass, Designing for Changing Lifestyles, explores this overlap between residential and hospitality design. As homes become more open and adaptable, hospitality spaces are becoming more personal and immersive, raising key questions around comfort, privacy, adaptability, and performance. In this context, glass plays a pivotal role not just as a visual medium, but as a performance material shaping light, thermal comfort, and the relationship between inside and outside. To unpack these ideas, we are joined by three distinguished speakers from practice, academia, and industry. Our first speaker is architect Bharat P., who leads Make Sense Design, a practice rooted in context, materiality, and human experience. Based in Sikkim, his work responds closely to the Himalayan climate and culture, creating spaces that engage all five senses. Working across scales, from interiors to master plans, he brings a strong understanding of how materials perform over time, especially in extreme environments. He has also contributed to academia as a visiting faculty at CEPT University, Ahmedabad. Our next speaker is Ms. Pooja Anand. Ms. Pooja Anand brings over 26 years of experience in design practice and education. Currently a professor at IIAD New Delhi, her work engages with craft, material culture, and sustainability, bridging traditional knowledge with contemporary design thinking. Through her teaching and research, she offers valuable insights into how materials are understood and applied by the next generation of designers. And next, we have Mr. Fahim Mohammed. Fahim Mohammed is the product head for the Windows category at Saint Gobain, India, leading the growth of its premium UPVC and aluminium window solutions. With experience across product development, operations, and sales transformation, he has helped scale the Windows portfolio in India. He is passionate about creating solutions that address real customer needs with strong performance, trust, and value. We are truly delighted to have all of you with us today. Let's get started. My first question is for Mr. Bharat. So, how are you seeing the idea of living versus staying evolve through the spaces that you design?
Yes. Hi to everyone, first of all. And thanks for having me also. Yeah. So, how we see living and staying as different when approaching design also is like living, we try to address the personal health of life, as curated whenever it's designed. As like direct day-to-day activity, how the client or the person inhabiting the particular space goes around in their day-to-day activity in a way to create peace in their home. A person should feel like I want to go home. Like that should be the underlining feel you have to create when creating a home. And well, staying is more like a when a guest is coming here, it should be like a shot of espresso, I would say. You give them culture, life reminder, unforgettable things, like short but sweet. The stay is also short, so it has to be like curated in a very powerful way, you know. but that cannot go to a very day-to-day activity. That'll be too jarring, too much going into people's mind. So you have to be very careful when playing with both of these things. I feel that's how we approach design when we design something for a residential project versus even like a guest room or a hospitality project.
Yes, very true. Pooja ma'am, coming from an academic perspective, how are design studios evolving to help students respond to these changing ways of living and staying?
Right. So in terms of design studios, there has been a significant shift after COVID, I would say. Uh, and every user, whether it is for living scenario or for hospitality, the scenarios have changed. So initially, in the past, we used to have a hypothetical approach. Basically, the project briefs used to be hypothetical. Now, from hypothetical, we have now moved to a real client brief. So that the students get an idea of the client, the real client, because from client to client, the requirements changes. From let's say a family who's where the main member is working in MNC to a business family. Similarly, in hospitality, also the hospitality sector has also changed from from star hotels to boutique hotels to lifestyle hotels and luxury hotels. So to make the student understand, like there are these different kind of clients, uh, the the having a real client, a live project, I would say, makes much more impact and also helps to bridge that gap between the industry requirement and the studio understanding. So it so before the student enters the enter market, they actually get to meet the real clients, they get the real briefs. So which also helps them to understand the not just the client but also the actual scenario, the limitations, the rigidity of the project. Not that everything is flexible, you can design whatever you feel like. So yeah, that's what I want to say.
Yes, that's true, ma'am. Design studios are evolving to bridge the gap between just academia and the real world. That's very true. Mr. Fahim, my next question is for you. Uh, you come from the Windows background, and Windows for us, they frame our views and define how we experience light, privacy, and our connection to the outside spaces. So, speaking of homes and hospitality projects today, how have expectations from Windows evolved beyond just being openings in the wall?
Hi. A good day to all of you. I think the biggest change that I have seen is like growing up, every one of us have used Windows. I think the difference though is what used to be ignored or taken for granted, that's not happening anymore, and our expectations keep changing. Like I remember growing up, during many of my windows would not open or close. I would have difficulty, latching them shut. Sometimes it would leak. Termites, I've had termite problems in my home. I've had, we have to maybe paint them every few years or polish them. So just how what and none of that actually made anyone in the home say, yes, we need to upgrade our windows, because all of this was part and parcel of how things are. That's just the way windows were. I think the big difference that we see now is as India becomes more affluent, as India starts traveling more, as they come across uh, more luxurious surroundings, or better windows in general, that our expectations from a window have changed, and what used to be okay earlier is not okay anymore. And now I want my windows to, when I want it to open, it should open. When I want it to shut, it should shut. And when I'm shutting it, I don't want the outside in. I don't want noise inside. I think the biggest change that I see with Windows is just how much more people expect from a window, and how what was okay earlier is not okay anymore. But of course, that's not only for Windows. I think you can see that in every single product across a home or an hospitality project. I mean, it's true for taps, showers, the beds, how the bed should be. So I think as people's expectations keep increasing and the demand keeps increasing for windows that do more and not just be an opening.
True, true, very true, Mr. Fahim. Thank you. Mr. Bharat, you had mentioned prior about how your approach is different when it comes to designing homes versus hospitality spaces. So, what could you explain in more detail about what the fundamental shift is in your approach while designing those spaces?
Yeah, it's both are very different. It can easily be like now you see a lot of homes being designed as a hotel because, like what Mr. Fahim is also saying, they travel, they see, and they want to just replicate that. No thought is given into like your lifestyle. This is very important. Cultural lifestyle, for example, like here in Sikkim, especially, a very interesting factor was like people don't use halls more. They just walk into your kitchen with their shoes. Okay. So, like putting a kitchen right in front of your main door is like unspoken of in any part of India, but it happens in the Northeast. It's very common. If you visit any sort of Northeast, like traditional houses, the kitchen is the main space. So when they do that and like bring it to a their own context of copying something from their travel and putting it here, they find their all their carpets are getting like trampled on and everything, because again thought is not given to curation, thought is not given to this thing. So when we design homes to hospitality, homes becomes a very personal thing. So you have to like get to understand the people, stay with them, understand them, like what ma'am is saying, you get in touch with the client, understand the client. That is very vital. Whereas for hospitality, you have to understand the general population as well as the general flora, fauna, context, culture. All these things come into play. And that takes a lot of time. So you need to give a exercise of letting a designer or students to like take in the space, visit the culture, like because they are coming from a different like background. They visit the space, they will automatically immediately understand what is so different here. The clues are like so like spontaneous. So then you take that and reflect it as a design. you know and for home, I usually try to keep it very subtle. Again, we shouldn't always be very bold with stuff. It should be very subtle in the background. Whereas hospitality, you can go, hospitality is the only I think niche in architecture where you can like have the freedom to do anything and everything, experiment. It's the discipline in it is like not as harsh as like for designing a hospital or education center or any other thing. So this is your good playground, hospitality. So you can go, and maintenance is not a big issue because hospitality usually has its own team to maintain stuff, and they do it every 5 years, 10 years. So you don't have to worry about everyday maintenance like what you do for a home, especially. But the most important thing, common thing between these two spaces is you still want the people to go back to them. Okay. Whether it's a home or hospitality. So how do you create that is like very interesting, you know? So that's how we approach both of those things.
That was very well explained, sir. Thank you. Pooja ma'am, you must have guided and helped so many students when it comes to projects about homes and hospitality. So when students do design for such spaces, how do you how do they begin to think differently about light, about privacy, and about overall comfort?
Yeah, so for us, I mean, how we start, we make them understand that there's a difference between living and staying. When we talk about residence, a home, it's more about living and more towards comfort and a long duration comfort, not a short duration comfort, which is a hotel. And I mean, we need to understand, the student need to understand the routine, the life cycle, how, because all families are different. Also, culturally, also activity wise, also the number of members in a space would also be different versus hospitality, which is used by a large number of people. But when it comes to like a guest room, it is like maybe 2 or 3 users. So also to make them understand that this long-term comfort versus short-term comfort, along with that, there is something called experiential. So both the spaces needs to be experiential, because today's there is also a scenario where clients, they go on Pinterest, they click pictures and they come to us, designers and architects, saying we need this kind of space. They don't know whether the picture they are taking is from a house, maybe in New Zealand or in India, in Calcutta or in Delhi, because there is also a trend like if we stop using the culture, then everything looks similar. Or is it from a hotel? No, today's client, they want comfort of the hotel, but yes, the experience of a house, because they want that privacy. They want their things, their objects to be around them, so that there is an ease of approachability and all that. So understanding this difference is very important for the student. Then also the thin line of privacy, because in a home there is a privacy, but yet you should be able to connect with your other members, versus in hospitality where you have come here in a hotel because you want to disconnect yourself from rest of the world. So to understand that difference, to understand that gap, that becomes like the starting point. And then how much comfort, what kind of comfort, now how can you, like for example, the windows which are used in a home, which is to maybe open up and get the fresh air, versus in a hotel where the windows are closed, because you want to sit in an air conditioned environment and you really want to, whether it is summer, winter, spring, you hardly want to open that window. So that kind of understanding, that kind of mindset is very important, that different spaces works differently. There are different users, culturally, location wise, context basis. So one is, I would say, more towards comfort, and the other is more towards experiential, where in hotel, like as architect Bharat said, they can be more experimental. In homes, they have to be experimental, but they have to focus more on comfort and the clients, because ultimately they have to use it on everyday basis.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am, very true. So, following from that, Mr. Fahim, Pooja ma'am, and Bharat sir have spoken so much about comfort and experience. So, what are some subtle window or glass decisions that may go unnoticed but can actually make a significant difference when it comes to comfort or experience?
Hmm. I think when we look at glass and the glass that we use in the window, and most people, I mean, regular people who are maybe not architects or interior designers or maybe not from the industry, when they think of glass, they usually think clear glass. And if somebody proposes to them that they could use a higher performance glass which is going to cut the heat, they are usually, many of them are hesitant because they are worried about a few things. They're worried that the the color of the glass may not suit the architecture. They're also worried that maybe it makes the home too dark. And what's interesting is that in India, which is so bright, that even if a glass which appears dark from outside, for the people who are actually inside, it's not dark at all. And in fact, what we do see in India is, even though the trend nowadays is to have larger and larger windows, and the idea of larger windows is to also be able to enjoy the natural light. But because a lot of people just have clear glass in those large openings, it's so bright in India that we always keep those windows closed. So windows are there, the windows are beautiful, they're large, but they never get to experience the benefit of the window, which is natural light. So I think one underrated feature that is available now is to use glass which might appear darker from outside, but actually reduces the amount of heat and UV coming into your home. And that will make your space feel healthier, more open. And because natural light is so important for people, and just having more natural light, especially in the mornings, it for me personally, I've seen a big difference. Uh, so the bedroom I sleep in, the window faces the east, and if I keep the curtains open, then I don't need an alarm clock because the sun directly shines at me. And luckily for me, the place I'm staying at, it's an apartment, one I rent, but they have used a darker shade of glass, which cuts out a lot of the heat. So I'm happy to keep the windows open more often. So I think that's one area where people can keep an open mind, and not from the architectural fraternity, but more from the end user's perspective, that it does not actually make the home dark because that's how bright India is. So
True.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
one interesting thing about this.
Yes, yes. So continuing that conversation, Mr. Fahim, when we talk about windows and fenestration systems today, what are the different types and system choices that architects should be aware of, especially in homes and hospitality projects?
I think in general, architects know what different opening types are available. So I would, rather than answering about the opening types, I think what I would want to talk about is the material types and how they apply to different types of buildings. I think we need to be very sure of the amount of loading that a particular window or door gets. By loading, I mean how frequently it is used, and that has a key bearing on the type of material or hardware that is used. For example, any opening which is very high frequency usage, like you have in entrance doors or in lobbies, that should never be UPVC, for example. It should always be either steel or aluminum. You need something more durable. You need something which will take regular wear and tear. And if you have, on the other hand, you are looking for residential usage, then actually the material that gives the most bang for the buck is UPVC, because the amount of comfort I'm able to get in terms of heat cut, sound cut, in terms of how it looks and how maintenance free it is. For the price, it has the highest ratio. So I think for a particular price point, if you want the best window in a home, I think UPVC gives you that option. On the other hand, if you want some other features which UPVC is not very good at, which is you want super slim sight lines, then maybe aluminum and steel is better. But still, they will not be as value for money as UPVC. So I think just being careful with the usage of the framing material for the application is important. And everything has its pros and cons, and I would never say one material is better than the other. But I think the what's really needed is to give the right product for the right application for the right user, and
True,
which
true.
should solve the problems.
Yes, very important decisions and choices. Mr. Bharat, do these technical considerations shape your that shape your design from the outset. Do they come into play as the project develops, or what is the timeline?
We love large windows, okay, because we follow that. I really believe that in a place like Sikkim or in a place like Himalayan ranges, where right now what's happening is all the urban spaces of these high altitude zones are getting too clustered. Okay, so there's no natural sunlight. Okay, going to every room, every space, and the people are getting depressed. Okay, it's a very logical psychological thing. Okay, so for me, more than putting expensive chandelier or Italian marble stuff, which doesn't make any sense here, sunlight is luxury. Like we go by that like rule. So windows or fenestrations or any sort of light, skylight, let it be, or a glassed basement area where it's workspace. I work in an area where I see the whole view, but I have designed it in a such a way that nobody can see me, because once the view comes, the other thing is privacy is also a very important aspect. So we love, and he's absolutely right, UPVC is bang for the money. And it should be the only, like, it should be a law that you should use it in extreme climates like Sikkim or even like very hot places. Because the timber, no matter how well you season it, no matter how much time you take to season it, the expansion contraction will not go, because it's like a very physical thing. And UPVC has so much proven in Europe, in US, like how much it can like take the load for like 10 years, 15 years. Because another important problem that we have here is moisture. With 8 months of rainfall, the moisture, so when we are designing the windows, even sliding is not advised in certain spaces, because it has a certain gap where the moisture will keep on accumulating. And in winter, my thermal heating will be lost continuously. So we design an airproof room. Okay. But at the same time, I need ventilation in summer, you know, that is there. And what I would deviate from, like putting a colored glass or anything like Mr. Fahim was saying, is use Baba style of like sunshades and roofs, and to play which angle, which north side, south side, what room is there, how do you let the sunlight come in throughout the day, what is the building next to you. So we have a clear understanding what windows we are going to use, what mechanism it's going to be, what material it's going to be. Another important load factor that he was saying is like not just like load in terms of mechanical, but we have something called as wind load. And I love double volume, height, living spaces where entire sunlight comes in. So you feel like, it's totally worth doing it in a place which requires sunlight, double volumes, triple volumes. You know, the more light comes in, the deeper it goes into my space also. So we had this one project where a double volume is framed towards whole of Gangtok, and yes, we got the professionals in, we took their advice, wind load, and yes, they suggested us to go with system aluminum. Yes, it is expensive, but it is the right decision. It breaks the wind, it's designed in such a way that it can take for like skyscrapers and stuff like that. So this will be like a walk in the park for it. Whereas UPVC will work, but it's risky. So now day to day, the experts are well informed, the material is well informed throughout social medias, like what is there, curved glass is there, double glazing is there, this thing. I suggest like we shouldn't get deviated by it. Just because we see something nice in Instagram, we shouldn't use it here. You know, we should understand why we are using what. That should be taught to like students also, and then like reflect that in design. And I think the experts nowadays give very good advices, irrespective of whether architects in the project or not. Okay. So if there's like he was saying, I have a room facing the east, harsh sunlight is coming. Yes, tinted glass works. There you cannot go and break the entire apartment, change the rooms, put sunshades. It doesn't work. But they are well informed and they can do it. So I feel like experts are available anytime, and it's always good to like consult them initially if you're doubtful about something, especially for young practitioners. Call them, sit with them, understand their product, understand the pricing. What he was saying is like bang for the buck is very important, especially when you're starting off as a young architect also. And then yes, as you go higher, you can explore more. So that's how we approach Windows.
True, true, sir. Pooja ma'am, like sir mentioned, it is so important to understand the material, consulting the experts, understanding it thoroughly. So when you are guiding students through a design project, how do you help them to make decisions around materials, their performance, especially considering homes versus hospitality spaces?
See, I will continue, take on what architect Bharat has also mentioned. Uh, in today's scenario versus when I was learning design, approaching to the vendors was very difficult. And now it's just a phone call, and the vendors, they actually come to the institution to give briefing to the students. So we actually start from there. Either we take our students to experiential centers and these marketplaces where they can actually see the material, understand the material, touch the material, and have a direct understanding from uh, the company, the material providers. Then after having this understanding, they come back, they understand the client, they understand the user, location, context, and all that. And then they start applying that material based on the behavior of the material, their performance, and all that. Not that any material can be used anywhere. So few materials that can be used in living spaces, homes versus hospitality are different, because in hospitality you can even go for luxury materials because budget is always like, in both scenarios are always different. So after understanding, and then yes, we also, it's not just limited to one material. We, because as an institutional level, because the practice starts from here, so we also teach them that how to explore with two materials together, combination of materials and all that, what will work in what context, because initially you will have to put in certain case studies in front of them to make them understand that yes, this is the scenario and how this material has been applied. So we have to look for good case studies and then start with that process where they start analyzing, they start putting their mind forward, that how now they can be experimental yet practical in their approach.
True, ma'am, very true. That was a wonderful explanation. Architect Bharat, my next question is for you. When you're designing in mountain context, what are some key construction techniques or strategies that you rely on to respond to terrain and climate there? And how does that then influence how you design openings and use systems like insulated or double glazed units to manage both the heat and the cold?
Yeah, it's a similar answer to what I had given last time. Sunlight is luxury, you know. Apart from that, I feel here the mountain, especially Sikkim and its neighboring zones, is very different from any other western sides of Himalayas, or even for Japan or any other mountain zones, because it's not just mountains, it's the heavy rainfall. Okay. And what you have is subterranean water lines. So when designing in such a place, it's very important to keep the load distributed. Okay. And to keep, the foundations planned in such a way that it's earthquake resistant. you know that is like the fundamental aspect of placing your building. Then we go on to sunlight is luxury, which shows us what space is directed towards which side of the sun during the day, the morning, how the windows are fenestrated and everything. And then we go ahead with like views over like expensive stuff, private views. I mean, what sort of forest view I can get, or the view of Mount Kanchenjunga, or the view of like a river. So what can I frame, which is more experiential when I walk into the space? Because we think architecture and interior are the same, are like the different sides of the same coin. So you have to be very careful to do the form as well as the interiors when you start designing. You like, I'm walking into a space, this is the first thing I see. I see a tree, or I see a this thing. Like when I do something so powerful, the interior is Like I don't have to sell my interior too much, is what I feel. I don't have to go and like, put this material to make sure this is like well done, It's not required. So especially in residential, as a matter of fact, what happens is you give them the framework, like what initially ma'am was saying. It's very important, should have a personalization for them, so you give them the framework, like I give them the platform to keep their family stuff, or where they want to sit, and options, a flexible design to where to put their fireplace, or whether they can put a TV or a couch. And let's like we shoot the project after 1 2 years of the clients living in the space, especially residential. Let them fill it, you know so that's what happens. And I think that is very like improvised kind of a design with the client in a way. After a while, the initial stages are very rigorous, whereas for hospitality, when we design in this context, it's like it's safety first and foremost. You cannot just go and build like a 500 room, put the whole load inside of a soil which is very weak and unstable. That is like, it's not advised. At the same time, they are coming to a place where they want to connect with nature. You cannot put them in dingy rooms looking at another building also. You're right. So these kind of primary factors totally add. Double glazed glass, again, like the higher the altitude, the more the cold it is, the more my thermal insulation is going to be. So yes, it does work. Like where to give it, like soundproofing, for example, between two rooms which are very adjacent in terms of hospitality projects, safety, privacy, sunlight. And I feel the glass now has become such a nice material. Even curved glasses are available, round toughened glasses are available in system aluminum. Arches are being like brought into the market nowadays for creating styling. You know, styling is a very last thing in ours, because we feel when you address the basics, the beauty will come. But still, styling is very important. Like you go to Darjeeling, styling is there. There is influence of colonial architecture in there, which is very unique to even the actual colonial architecture. Okay, because it has a little bit mix of Indian flavor to it from Rajasthan and stuff like that. So yeah, so you have to understand styling, where you're doing what. Now arched, okay, I want to do a project where I need an arched like system aluminum. It's there, it's come. So we are excited with these kind of opportunities, because that was like a negative point towards addressing function rather than design, because people started thinking design was just the looks. But now it's like the more and more this technology gets closer to flexible to do whatever we want. Like curved glass is amazing. Now we can do curved buildings. You know, like that toughened curved glass is like one of the tough nuts to crack, and we have to keep everything straight. For that particular reason. So now that's getting cracked. So I feel glass is evolving, and with that, our job is getting easier, I would say.
True, sir, very true. Pooja ma'am, following that conversation, speaking of extreme terrains, how do you guide students to think through decisions when it comes to climate and extreme heat or extreme cold or rains? And, where comfort depends on both design intent and technical understanding.
So, uh, so basically, what we need to, when we plan our curriculum, we need to actually plan the exercises, the assignment based on what context that we want to teach the student. So this work is done, it's like a homework for the teachers before the student arrives in the classroom. So we basically give them scenarios or give them design briefs in such a way so that it allows them to think contextually and climatically. Uh, so that, let's say, I'll just give you one example. We have done one project which was basically, the building was in Noida, and we wanted them to design a workspace, but it has to be energy efficient building. So they started looking into the context, the location of the building, the direction of the sun, how much sunlight is coming from, what is the source of sunlight, and all these things. And then what are the materials available? What are the kind of glasses that are available that can block the sunlight? Or what are the other kind of uh, explorations, experimentations that can be done? So understanding the context becomes very important. Where is your site? Let's say, is it in Sikkim or is it in Delhi? Do I need that sunlight, or I need to block the sunlight? So that understanding becomes very important, and also how material behaves. Now, what is important here for them to understand is the functionality of the space and the functionality of the material. So basically, we need to align them, that so that the function of the space and the function of the material, they come together, so that they get a good solution, a comfortable solution for the client. And again, it's not all about aesthetics, it's also about the visual comfort, thermal comfort, the emotions in the space, where, the emotions of a home versus the emotion of a space which is hospitality, where you're not that emotional, but yes, you get emotionally connected to the space where you are maybe coming up for some time, or that aligns you to come to that space again and again. So that this process is very important for them to understand. And as I said in the past, case studies also become very important for a student to understand that, okay, how, and not any case study should be like a good case study which can help them to understand different contexts and different materials, how the fusion of material has been done and all that.
Yes, ma'am, very true. Mr. Fahim, continuing the conversation about working in different climates, how do parameters like U value, SHGC, glazing thickness and type, and insulation systems directly translate into comfort inside homes and hospitality spaces?
I think that the way I simplify it to myself and to others is, areas which are super hot, very sunny. I think those are the climates in which you need uh, good and low solar heat gain. So low solar heat gain basically means that um, a lot of the heat is reflected away before it even comes inside the home. That's how you get high performance, low solar heat gain windows. So in areas which are super bright, super sunny, those are areas in which you need good SHGC products. Areas which are cold in India, like the north or the northeast, which you the problem isn't really the amount of heat entering in; it's about the cold entering in or the heat escaping from your home. Those are those are cities or regions where you need good U value, which is more of a thermal performance thing. It's unrelated to the sun. You need a good U value window will preserve the heat inside or the cold inside even during the night. So areas which are cooler, which are the northeast, the extreme north. I think those are the regions where you need good value, and there are areas which have both, like NCR, for example. The cold is super cold, and and the summers are super hot. Those are areas which will benefit from windows that do both. So the way um, I think U value is something which is far more important in cooler climates. It's which is why most of the European literature or the American literature we read, that's why U value is given so much importance. But I believe it's not a copy paste thing in India. It's far more bang for the buck that in majority of the populations of India, which is south and west and central parts of India, that we achieve good SHGC, and it is cheaper to achieve good SHGC than to achieve U value. So I think that's the way I would look at it.
Thank you, Mr. Fahim. Very well explained. Mr. Bharat, my question is next for you. From your experience, what is one guiding principle that young architects often overlook but is crucial for designing meaningful homes and hospitality spaces for the future?
I think when we start young, like we influenced by so many things and we want to show it, okay? But I feel the most underplayed thing is like you have to respect the context. And if you do that justice, I think, and by context, I mean like the physical. Of course, you study the site, what is adjacent to it, how's the sun, how's the wind, water reacting to it, of course. The cultural, the second, becomes very important. Like who's going to live it, who's going to act on it. And the most underrated one is economical context. Okay. Does a hotel of this caliber matter in a place like this? First question you have to answer. Just because a client comes and tells you, okay, I'm going to do say a 5-star category hotel here, does it economically, contextually make sense? Number one, you have to understand and talk to them in terms of economical factors also. Okay, you're building somewhere where the transportation of material is going to cost you again. So for them to like use local materials is much more wiser, you know like using systems like system aluminum or UPVC where it's fabricated and it's fitted makes more sense. So if they address the context, respect it fully, and then bring in their like personal touch of like designing their own style, which nobody can teach you, I feel. Designing is a very innate thing, okay? So I feel it should come from you, your life experience, how you have gone through your life, where you have visited, traveled, lived, studied. All this adds to your particular design. I wouldn't even call it a style. It's a language or whatever. It comes from you. Okay, nobody can teach you that. But if you're taught like what ma'am is saying, also we give importance to the context, give importance to the clients, and if students take that very seriously, I think you are like you will not make blunt. My senior used to say, in architecture, you can make mistakes. You can never be perfect. It's okay to make mistakes, but don't make blunders. Because once you lose a name, especially as a young architect, when you start and you lose a name, it'll haunt you for the rest of your life. Doing like massive projects when you're young, it's not advisable. Just take some guidance from your seniors, from your teachers, because it's very easy to make blunders when you're starting initial stage. So yes, respect it more and more, and address those things. I think the path will always get better. That's how I feel.
Yes, sir. Thank you. That is a wonderful takeaway for everyone who's watching this webinar. Ms. Pooja, my next question is for you. As we look ahead to 2047, what is the one mindset that you feel it is important to nurture in the students so that they can design more meaningful homes and hospitality spaces in the future?
I think the students need to be a responsible and adaptable designer or an architect. They need to be empathetic towards nature, towards the client, and yes, towards themselves also, including the material, whatever material they are applying. Uh, Keeping all that in mind, since the things are changing in a very rapid phase, they need to also be very explorative and experimental simultaneously. But again, keeping the as a behaving like a responsible citizen or a responsible designer, being empathetic towards everyone, which is very important, and understanding the local context, sustainability is also very important if we want to save the world. If we
True.
just don't want to just get into making buildings, and I mean, let's be responsible. That is very important for them. It's not that yes, I am a new designer, let me just apply everything, anything, anywhere. What is important, how much I can save, how much. So functionality is there, aesthetics is also there, but what you need to understand is the material, the actual quality of material, and then how beautifully you can use that material. Yeah.
True, ma'am. Very true. Thank you so much. The last question of the webinar, Mr. Fahim, goes to you. From your perspective, how do you see glass and window systems evolving to support the future of homes and hospitality industry in India?
I think uh, in continuation to what I said earlier, I think a lot of windows that we actually end up using are quite subpar. And subpar in the sense of, I'm not talking about it not having the best features. I just mean that even the bare minimum is not met. Uh, as Mr. Bharat was saying, how uh, the air conditioning can leak out if it doesn't close properly, or how water can come in, or how sometimes the wind load is not calculated properly. And all of that is happening. I mean, that doesn't happen with our phones, right? I mean, when we purchase phones or laptops, we are so knowledgeable. We know so much about what we need from these type of products. Even in the kitchen, we know exactly what type of fitting I want in my cupboards. I want it to be soft close. I want it to be a particular color, because I really care for a lot of people really care about what fittings they use in the cupboards in the kitchen, what taps they use in the bathrooms, what phone they use, what laptop they use, what earphones they use. These are things, what cars they drive. These are things people really care about, and which is why I think you have high quality products there. Most of the products in these spaces are decent quality. On the other hand, window is extremely unorganized in India. Most windows, I mean, even the largest window player is less than 4% market share. And no other industry of this scale has this level of unorganization. So, what that results in is a lot of unorganized players making subpar windows, and the end customers don't even know that what they're getting is not good. I think what I feel is, with time, awareness is increasing, knowledge is increasing, the market is getting more organized. People's need for higher quality windows will keep on increasing. And overall, uh, people will end up getting a higher quality window, because the entire the market, the architects will start demanding higher quality, because the architects would have experienced the difference that they are able to give to the end customer when using a better product. Developers would possibly see that their end customers are actually inquiring about what window is used. Today, in an apartment, when somebody goes to buy an apartment, they will inquire about the tiles that are used. They will inquire about the taps, about the paint, but they won't do it about windows. And it's not very difficult to imagine, because paints was in a similar space 20 years ago. We would just use distemper or tuna, and nobody knew of the options available. Nobody knew about Asian paints and what it could provide. And I think with time, people's expectations of paint have increased. So I feel one key change that I see evolving is just people demanding higher quality windows and the industry adapting to cater to that.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. And with that, we are almost coming to conclude today's webinar. Before we do, we want to move into a rapid fire round. So each of you will be asked 4 questions, and you can respond in one word or brief answers. Architect Bharat, will start with you first. So, what is one word that defines your design approach with glass?
Blurred.
In homes and hospitality spaces, what do you enjoy more, framing views or shaping interior warmth?
It depends on hierarchy. So first is framing views, but then it's the warmness, of course. It can't be
Uh,
hierarchy, I'd say.
Hierarchy. A material that you think works best in harmony with glass in your projects.
Not harmony, but contrast, I would say stone, because I like stone and glass. It creates a very natural feel, and with that addition of that blur, it makes you feel like you're living a primitive life in comfort,
Great.
creates that feel.
Yeah. If you could redesign a famous building using glass as a primary language, which one would it be?
In India, glass as primary language is tough, but on a high altitude zone, maybe like any buildings in Darjeeling, like the older Saint Andrew's Church in Darjeeling, maybe it's renovated at the moment, but if that was designed with more glass, it would create an atmosphere that is very like unique and almost as impressive as like say Tado Ando's Church of Light, or you know or Peter Zumthor's churches in Switzerland. It can be, but I would keep it in the higher altitudes when it's glass as primary material.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Those are interesting answers. My next set of questions is for Miss Pooja. Ma'am, what is one word that describes how students currently approach glass in design education?
Um, Exploratively.
Okay. If glass was a teacher in a design studio, what lesson would it insist on most for homes and hospitality projects?
Light and comfort and privacy too.
Okay. A material that you feel students should explore more alongside glass in their learning process.
See, as a student, I would say that it's not just one material. They need to explore a lot of materials because they are at the exploration, experimentation stage. Wood has been used a lot with glass, but the creative way, I think, still needs to be explored. There could be many more ways. So, I mean, I don't know. I would say uh, wood and glass, similarly
Okay.
metal and glass, and I would like students to also explore fabric and glass.
Okay, yeah, that is an interesting approach. Okay, a building or a space where you feel glass is used most intelligently in shaping experience.
I think in today's time, I would say hospitality spaces, specifically the lifestyle hotels like the the boutique hotels. Like one example, if I can give you, is Hotel Andaz at the Aerocity, Delhi. They have actually used the glass in such a way, like some of the prime guest rooms, you can actually have a view of runway, and those are there the most expensive rooms. So I feel that's the most intelligent way of using your location and using the application of material.
That's great. Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Fahim, the last set of questions is for you. If a glass could express its best quality on site, what would it proudly highlight?
I think natural light.
Okay. A performance parameter in glass that you think should be better understood by architects.
Um that glass can actually do UV cut, and because of that UV cut, your furnitures won't fade, your curtains won't fade, the lifespan increases quite a bit.
If glass systems could become smarter in one way, what should it be?
I really wish it could be easier to clean glass and it remains clean without touching. I just wish that was possible. It's just a wish for now.
Okay. A project where glass was used in a way that really stood out to you.
I think long ago when the first Apple store came up in New York, the Cube, Fifth Avenue. So this was even before I started my career. So it was just I was quite fascinated by the engineering challenge that actually the entire exercise was, and how they went to the ends of the earth to figure out how to actually make what looks like a very simple cube, but how difficult it was, it's only the people who built it really know.
True. Thank you, sir. And with that wonderful round, we come to the end of this webinar. Thank you, Architect Bharat P, Ms. Pooja Anand, and Mr. Fahim Mohammed for this incredibly insightful and thought-provoking conversation today. As we close this session, what stands out is how homes and hospitality spaces are increasingly being shaped by a shared design language where experience, comfort, and performance are no longer separate considerations but deeply interconnected ideas. From exploring how spatial thinking responds to changing lifestyles to understanding how materials like glass influence light, perception, and comfort, this conversation has helped us see design not just as a form making, but as an experience making across both living and staying environments. Each of your perspectives, whether from practice, academia, or industry, offered a distinct but complementary lens: how spaces are imagined, how they are taught, and how they are made real through material and technology. On behalf of Glass Academy and Ethos Empowers, thank you all for your time, your clarity of thought, and for sharing your expertise so generously with us today. And to our audience, thank you for being with us throughout the session and for your active engagement. We hope you take away fresh perspective on how homes and hospitality spaces can be reimagined through the combined lens of design thinking, material intelligence, and lived experience. Stay tuned for our upcoming sessions as we continue to explore conversations at the intersection of architecture, materials, and human experience. Do follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn for more updates, insights, and upcoming announcements from Glass Academy and Ethos Empowers. See you all in the next webinar. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.